Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to take a look at Knights of Fire, Battle for Budapest. Now this is on the heels of Days of Ire, which is a game in a similar vein, but not necessarily similar enough to be a direct sequel or just skinning of Days of Ire. Knights of Fire is a fight through the streets of Budapest, where you, the revolutionaries, are fighting against communist forces of Russia as they head into your city in 1956. So it's done by Brian Train, who's known for quite a few games, including one of my favorite coin games, Colonial Twilight, and David Terzi. Sorry if I mangled that name. But he's also done quite a few things, including a lot of games that are very solo-friendly. So let's take a look at what's inside.
Alright, let's take a look at Knights of Fire, Battle for Budapest. What do we have? We have a gorgeous map of downtown Budapest. We have block units for the resistance. Notice each block, some of the blocks are black, have a black silhouette. Those are locals, they never move. The fighters, on the other hand, they do move, and they're able to move around the board and sort of like crystallize into being somewhere where they need to fight the Russians. Notice these icons. These icons map to special abilities that can be performed by these in correspondence with a card that also has that same icon. There are three sectors, and this is interesting. For the resistance, they can move all over the place. For the Russians, they have limits as far as sectors for where they can go. The 33rd, the 128th, and the 2nd regiments are all in areas. So these three tanks will be coming out the staging areas. They'll stay here and they'll move out and they'll go in and they'll try to take control of the land of the city as befits the historical nature. There's places for when you rescue people. These are citizens you're trying to help escape as the resistance. You want them to be, it's pretty costly, but you move them over to the Austrian border so they can escape, and you will get a benefit at the end of the game. However, if they are captured by the Russians, they go here, arrested civilians and killed insurgents. And as it goes, you have a track. You've got morale, starts at 25, which gives you a nice hefty handcard size. Once you drop down to 18, you then lose a third of your hand size capability, and until you go down. If morale ever hits 0, well, I'm sorry, you've lost early. Readiness is for the Russians. It gives a sort of a bonus, or it's used in various tests to decide if the Russians do things such as counterattack. For example, you roll a die and compare it to the readiness to determine if they do some additional damage or counterattack, strike back. This is the Russians' prestige track. Now they start at 20 for the variant of the game, the standard variant of the game I'm playing, and it will drop. If it too ever goes down to 0, then the Russians have lost prestige in the global community. They did a very poor job. The resistance did enough work to make known the atrocities befalling them. And so in doing so, they have made it so that the Russians come out looking like the bad guy. And that's it for that. Now there's different variants. There's a Konev, which is what you will play when it's just you against the board, or you and a friend playing tag team against the board. This will act as the Russian logic, the Russian AI that will be moving the Russian garrisons through the city doing damage. There's a specific sort of track that goes along where these cards will be executed, and they do various things. Some are very powerful and nasty, some are a little more easily containable, but there's a deck here of these cards and these numbers, and when we'll go over it because this is the version we're going to play. There's also the conflict. If you do have a human player who would like to play the Soviets and 1 to 2 players that would like to play the revolutionaries, you have an entirely different variant. It uses different cards, quite different in fact. So, and then of course you get the cheat sheets. And then the cards, you get certain chips. You have barricades, so you can try and eliminate the Russians doing as much damage by placing barricades. You also have garrisons, which once placed do not go away. And these can be placed in sectors of in districts of the city, and they will also provide nastier effects. And finally, you have health. So you can take 2 hits on each unit before they die, or momentum. When you do great things or very highly touted things as a revolutionary, you will put them here in the momentum, and then at the end of each round, this will sort of chip away at the prestige level. That's it. The other thing are cards. You'll have a ton of cards. They're very simple. They have a number and an icon or 2. And so these are played, their potency for 3 will be different based on whichever actions you use with them. And there are several actions that you will use as a revolutionary, such as ambushing, building barricades, counterattacking, moving, and just flat out attacking. Ambushing is usually more beneficial because you don't get to have to be counterattacked. Open attack is just like, look, I got to do something, because you never get rid of these guys, but you can slow them down and you can disable them. You can cause mayhem and destruction and despair. The advanced game has additional options, medics, and the ability to defy. We're going to actually do the simple version when we do the run through, which will begin now. Okay, so here we go. We're going to begin a game of Knights of Fire. The revolutionaries will go first, and on their turn, they draw... well, I'm doing a solo play, so I'm going to draw all 12 cards, and you'll notice them. I've got them arranged in power from right to left, with their iconography fully intact. And then you deal 5 Konev cards. 3 of them are face up. 2 of them are face down, so you will always have 3/5 perfect information as to what could occur, what will occur, and then 2 things that might occur that you don't get to predict. And you don't know which order they're going to occur, but you do know that they will occur, which gives you some idea of how to prepare or strategize so that you can avoid damage or detrimental impacts whenever possible. Then, I can't do this on the first turn, but on any other turn, if I choose to take one of these cards with this loudspeaker icon and throw it away, I can bring additional forces onto the map anywhere that there's a garrison or there isn't a regiment. Or sorry, not garrison. Into a resistance unit or anywhere that doesn't have one of these puppies, one of these regiments. So, now we go to the operations phase. I can play up to 3 cards on my turn. I can combine cards if I need to, and oftentimes I find myself doing that, and to do the action. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. I'm going to build a barricade. So how do I build a barricade? I'm glad you asked. First off, it requires that I have a hidden unit, because they're hidden or shown, so right now they're all hidden, with an icon that matches this set of bricks icons. And it costs me 1 plus the number of active regiments at that district. At least 1 card. Well, I don't want to place a barricade where, I'd have to pay an additional card for this. No, these staging areas don't count, but right now it would cost me 2 to place a barricade here, but I'm going to place a barricade here in 5A. Because I'd like to protect that. Yay! Alright, and then that discards my card. Do I get to play another card? I sure could. Oh. I didn't do that right. Let me explain that again. I forgot I have to have an icon that matches. This is what I wanted to do. Alright, see? And because I built the barricade wide in the wide open, I reveal that unit. And that means that it's a little more susceptible. Whether a unit's hidden or not hidden, I can't use it again this round to build more barricades or whatever, but I can move it around, doesn't matter. But it also becomes a little bit more vulnerable to enemy counter movements. So, then we're going to do this again. Or are we? I got an idea. Let's have some fun with this. So, I am going to play Ambush. Requires both hidden unit with icon, that's this guy, and cards that value at least 3 ops. I could combine cards to get 3 ops, and as long as one of those cards has the icon, it's fine. But right now I'm just going to use this 3 op. Whether that's prudent in the big scheme of things, don't know, but I'm doing this to show. So, now I do, kaboom! Disabled. Disabled is good. It means that it won't be able to do activations on its turn. It hinders it, and hindering is good. And I gain momentum. Huzzah! News of your exploits have been heard all around the outskirts of Budapest. And I'm going to call it good there. I'm not going to play a third card, I don't believe. Or should I? Yes, I should. I'm going to play this barricade. I'm going to match that barricade. And that's going to let me put this barricade here. Ah! Don't peek, Russians. Oh, sorry, don't peek. And right now the barricades are good. I really want to get these guys out of here because they're worth 2, these citizens. I want to get them out of there before the Russians capture them. So that's on my mind as well. And we're done. Now it's time for the Russians to act in response. Whee! 5. So this is the card that's going to get played. Alright, for each active regiment in the sector, and this is the second guards, look at that. I don't have an active regiment in the sector because I deactivated them. In increasing order of their district's number, then in staging areas, perform the first option possible. So the staging area will, yeah, okay. If arrest possible, can't arrest. If a garrison present, it's not present. If insurgent units present, but no barricade, inflict 1 damage. Okay, so there's nothing. This is its own area, so not worried about that. So if barricade present, clear it. Otherwise, move to highest threat adjacent district. And here's the thing. I basically have now moved these guys in here. Because for each one, I'm now moved out. So now they're in there in full force. So deactivating one only caused me pain for the others, but it did keep my guys safe, and I still have an opportunity not to have captured that guy. Although, if you look, it has to. If there's an insurgent here, or sorry, a revolutionary here that is visible, then they're not going to be able to capture the public. But that gives me an opportunity, and that is the end of that card turn. Now we move this here so that the next time we roll the dice, there's a greater chance this card will be revealed than any of the others. 50-50, in fact. Now it's our turn, and this is where I'm going to use my best poker face to help civilians escape. So, so it costs 6 to remove civilians to get them to the border of Austria. It's a lot. It's a huge undertaking. But you can reduce that number plus 6 minus the number of insurgents in the district. Alright, so guess what? It only costs me 4. And since these are not as palatable than the others, so 6, 5, 4. So I'm going to discard those. And now my citizens are on their way to the border. They're going to be safe. We've done our job. And that's all I'm going to do this turn. I still have the opportunity to play one more card if I wanted to, but none of these are really valuable to me. These counter-strike icons, basically if you have a counter-strike unit anywhere in a district and you're attacked by the Russians or take damage of any kind, you have an opportunity to counter-strike. And that's the way it rolls. This is just the beginning of the game, but imagine, if you will, going through this over time, moving your units around, disabling. These cards are very different. Activating specific guards, but then sometimes you get these nasty cards like Mobilize, or Occupy, that just basically wreak havoc across the map. Your job being constantly to chip away, because you know you're going to lose. You are going to lose. Some of you may die. Sorry, I love Shrek. Anyway, that's about the beginning taste of it. It gives you enough to go on. If you want to research further, there are some good playthroughs elsewhere online. Plus, this whole other play mode, which is, I believe, kind of an entirely different game unto itself because of the vast differences in how it plays when you're going against an opponent with their own custom set of cards. But there you go. That's Knights of Fire, a basic, quick, simple playthrough. Now let's get to what I think of this game.
Alright, we're back to talk about Knights of Fire, Battle for Budapest. Let's go over the cons first, as always. There is one thing to note about this game, is that when you are playing it solo play or cooperative, you are in a very unwinnable situation. You're going to lose. It reminds me about the little scene in What About Bob, where the young child who's in his dark mind is like, I'm going to die. They're going to die. We're all going to die. And that's really fortunate. It's basically the way it is here. This is an unfair fight. It leaves you do everything you can just to get the word out about what's going down. It's just, I mean, you're eking to get civilians to safety in Austria, to resist the advance of overwhelming forces with grit and gum and barbed wire, to slow down the onslaught for a few more hours in the day to fight again or rescue someone else or slip away. If that kind of idea is kind of exhausting for you, this is probably not going to be as much of interest to you than it would be to someone who might look at that as an exhilarating challenge or even a passing curiosity as to how you do. On the other hand, then this, if you do like sort of the challenge of it, then this will rise to that expectation with aplomb. The rulebook is fine. It's solid and stuff. I have a personal tendency when you're going to mix different play styles into the game or different game modes. They did their best to try to go, okay, highlight it in this color orange or darker color for the conflict mode, this color mode for the what is essentially the solo cooperative mode, and then littered through it, you'll be reading the rules and then chopping out here, chopping out to this section. I don't really like that as much. I actually would almost prefer they just say, here's two different books, even if there's redundancy. Here's this mode and that mode, because there's only two major modes basically. I would have preferred that. I understand that they have different motivations, rules, constraints, whatever. It just seems like I prefer two different rule books because of their pronounced dissimilarity in not trying to mesh it all in. It's not a huge hurdle by any means, but it is a preference that I have, and if you have that preference too, well, warned you are. So let's get into the pros. This is a light shadow of coin kind of game. I could see little vestiges of the coin games where it's not surprising given the pedigree of one of its designers. You have visible versus hidden units, and you have corresponding actions and reactions based on those. Just like I said, very, very, very light. Really like that. The manual, despite my one misgiving, is solidly produced. It's very clear, and it's very thorough for the most part. I love the empowerment aspect of this game. I love that you are not hamstrung by artificial limits. One of the classic ones is hand size. You've got just this many hands, and it's almost never enough. But here, you start off with 12 cards, and that's plenty. And then over time, as you're beaten back, you go down to 8 cards. And yes, that limits you, but that's part of the flow of the game and your choices in trying to stave that off. You do have choices that slowly funnel down over time, but at least it gives you an opportunity to pursue at least a semblance of organized, intelligent defense. And that's something that I feel powered, I'm going to be able to do these things and handle these things, especially starting off. And then over time, it's chipping away at me. Usually I like it the other way around, where you start small and you just grow into this large powerhouse. That's not realistic for this type of game and scenario and battle. The other thing I love is the premonition of knowing that some of the actions that you're going to be dealt in the cooperative mode against the AI are, being able to pre-see that these actions are going to happen, at least some of them, is liberating, because I so hate the blind, okay, I can't see or know anything about the future, but let's strategize. No, I don't like it. Here, 3 of the 5 things that are going to happen. You can at least make some provision and go, well, I don't know what those other 2 cards are. I can take a guess, but at least I know what I can do, and at least I've got a handful of cards as well as I can to do it. I love that. That is really cool to me. So, in summary, I am not a co-op guy. I generally don't like co-ops as much as I do competitive games. That is just realistic. That's just... I don't mind them. I will play them. There are plenty of co-op games I will play. Don't get me wrong. It's just they're not my favorite. A lot of times they boil down to here's let's resource shuffling, cube movement. Boil down to move and remove, and you mask it a little bit, and you have character actions or special abilities or some thematic things. But in general, you're playing glorified whack-a-mole. In a lot of ways, to me, no matter what, even the legacy and stuff. I don't mind them. Again, I don't hate them. I don't despise them. I will play them. I will even enjoy them. But they are not my favorite. And so there's no changing a lot of the underlying, if you're playing a contest, you're playing, if it's just you, it's what they are. You are playing a game where you're trying to like solve a puzzle in a group fashion, and while stuff is coming at you, you're staving off things, you're holding things at bay. Castle Panic or Pandemic, they're great games. The uptick in games that go beyond that go beyond that and start to really give you license to achieve more tangible, sensible things. I don't know if that probably didn't make a lot of sense, but I definitely think that there is a value in trying to do something more than just cube, add, cube, remove, even if they're not really cubes. And one of the things I really enjoyed about Knights of Fire is that it does this uptick as well. You get opportunities in sufficient quantity of causing trouble. You don't get starved from that. You get to do things that have meaning beyond just cube swaps. I really feel like I was able to functionally do my best work with overwhelming odds without feeling like I was arbitrarily restricted. And that means a lot. Another game similar to that where I felt like I had some power to my life was Horrified, another cooperative game that surprised me in a positive way. This is a solid above average game. The description of it is kind of warfare Euro game. It's kind of generally accurate, though I wouldn't say that I felt this Euro game kind of sense. I would say it leans more towards warfare as an overarching influence. It layers on advanced modes over time to keep it from steering into sameness, too. That's one of the other things, is that what you saw was the simple version of the game, but advanced modes add more abilities yet and more ways to mess with and be messed with. So you will, in that advanced mode, you'll have a lot more flexibility even than what I showed, so you won't get the sameness that, well, we're going down the same way, there's a few variants here, but no, you'll get a lot of variety. It gives you the game gives you sufficient resources to steer your strategy. It gives you at least some strategic imperfect clairvoyance into the plans of the invading enemy. No artificial difficulty from starvation or blind guesswork. It's probably the better of the games that offer an unfair fight. War of the Worlds, for example, is a DVG game, and some of the others where basically you're not going to win. You cannot win, so you're going to have to deal with that and know that your victory conditions are getting the word out, the moral victory, per se, and survive. And that's really, when you take on that mantle and you feel like you have the ability to make an impact and do that in a positive way, rather than feel like, how am I going to make it to the next turn? Everything's just hitting me right now. I'm just, I'm screwed from the start kind of thing. This is a stylish entry into solo play. It does justice to the topic, both through its game, through its art and style, and through the invaluable extracurricular material in the manual that just sets the stage of the war you're about to take part in. So definitely give it a shot. I definitely think it's a solid, entertaining title. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.